Vatican. They felt, it seems to be, as what happened is that the Templars were doing all the dirty work and collecting all the jewels and material treasures from the raping the earth and giving it to the Vatican. And they decided, why are we doing that? Why don't we just keep it ourselves? The hell with the Pope and the hell with the Church. We'll just do it ourselves because we're the ones. Well, that's the same kind of thinking that goes on with the mob, with the mafia. You know, you're out there on the street, and all of a sudden some of the soldiers begin to think, why are we feeding the old man? Why don't we just start our own movement, our own operation? We call it international bankers. We don't need the Vatican. And now all of a sudden there's a rift in the great mob rule because the old man is losing power over the young Turks, and the young guys are coming in who are doing the dirty work. They want to keep all the stuff for themselves. So there's always going to be this kind of infighting and internecine battles going on in underworld organizations, mafia, La Cosa Nostra. There's always going to be this kind, and of course mafia is Italian. So that's what the whole story of Godfather 3, if you go and get the third in the series of Godfather, you'll see the mafia directly connected to the Vatican in the Vatican, dealing directly with the Holy Father, dealing directly with the Pope. And it's an extraordinary story of how it's right there in your face in the movies. Francis Ford Coppola, in his third movie, Godfather 3, is telling you a lot right there in the movie, in your face. But so many people see it, and it's just entertainment. They don't make the connection. It's very obvious to me.
Well,
it's always been very obvious.
The Knights Templar, weren't they the first banking system?
Yes, they were, absolutely, and they are still the banking system today. They are still, in fact, the major bankers of the world belong to the Fraternal Order of Knights Templar. And it's a Masonic operation throughout Europe and ultimately throughout the world. This is why all banking systems, I mean, I do a whole thing, and you've probably heard it many times, a whole thing on the banking system and where the words come from. Why do you have a bank? What is investment? What does that word mean? Where does it come from? Where did it come from? And where do courts come from? You begin to see how the Vatican dominates our American court system. So if you don't like the courts, if you don't like the crooked politicians, if you're not happy with all of the heinous treason, high crimes and treason against the Republic, which is going on right now at what we call Washington, D.C., then you had better look at the concept of the Senate, Capitol Hill. You had better look on each side of the podium where the speakers in the House stand and give speeches, where you will see that the fasci is about an 8-foot high symbols on each side of the podium where the president stands to give his State of the Union message, and you will see two Roman fasces directly out of the old ancient Roman system of fascist government. Is right here in the Senate, right here in America. It's actually on the seal of the United States Senate, has two fasces, the symbol of world fascism in the United States Roman Senate. So Rome, the Roman Catholic Church, the Roman system of Mithra or Dagon, is now dominating the American system. We don't have anything happening in this country which is American. You have two political parties, and the reason why you have only two is because the eagle, the American eagle, is the same as the symbol for Rome. The Roman symbol in the ancient Roman Empire was the eagle. So we still have the Roman eagle, but eagles only have two wings, left wing and right wing. They only have two wings. This is why in America you can only have a left wing and right wing government, because the entire system that we are operating under in America is a Roman fascist system.
Well, you can take that symbol.
It has totally destroyed our American republic. We're so incredibly ignorant, incredibly uninformed, and profoundly unread. We've been entertained with all of our games and alcohol and all of our entertainment, never realizing for a moment that the entire superstructure of America is a fascist Roman system under the Vatican, meeting up on Capitol Hill with the Senate. The entire superstructure of America is a very filthy and dirty system coming out of the ancient Roman Empire, and we're still today in America, both Catholic churches and Protestant churches, on our knees worshiping Dagon, the fish god, and Mithra, the old ancient sun god. And I'm telling you that as long as America is on its knees to its masters, its Roman masters, worshiping the old ancient Roman gods, and then we have the audacity to actually ask God for protection and divine guidance, it's ludicrous on the face of it. America is lost because she is crawling on her knees to her masters of Rome and have no idea in the world what's going on. Americans are not very well read. They're profoundly ignorant when it comes to law and how governments work, how banks work. I'm just amazed at how far gone this great republic has lost all of its freedoms, its dignity, its honor. It's lost everything, and our Roman masters sit in the Vatican in absolute opulence and luxury, dominating Europe, dominating the world, and in fact dominating our great republic, and the people of our country have no concept at all in what's going on at all. All we know is we are dying, we're starving, our republic is crashing, our money is corrupt, our politicians are corrupt. You're looking at the fall of the Roman Empire. And yet, the most incredible part of this is the people love it. You will never get the people to understand who their real enemy is. The American people love crawling on their knees to their masters. They love it. They cannot get enough of the Vatican, the Holy Father. When the Holy Father comes here, everybody falls all over themselves to get next to him, to touch him. So I'm just saying, we're in a mess, and because we're so profoundly ignorant.
Let's take another quick break, ladies and gentlemen. We are speaking with Jordan Maxwell. We're going to have a longer segment when we come back, and we'll get to some of your questions from the chat room. TruthFrequencyRadio.com is the website. We are speaking with Jordan Maxwell. We have a couple of questions from the chat room, Jordan, if you don't mind taking a few. The first one is...
Before we do that, I would just say, if you go to my website, jordanmaxwell.com, and go to the button at the top of the page that says What's New, and scroll down and you will see two videos that I highly suggest. One is a video, one is not. But two products I would suggest if you're really interested in this story. The two products I have that are filled with this kind of stuff is called The Priesthood of the Elis. The Priesthood of the Elis is a DVD which is actually 3 books, old typewritten manuscripts, but they're 3 different books written by the same man, not by me. And these 3 books I put together as to one book on a DVD called Priesthood of the Elis, in which this is a very old publication back in the 30s. And but what this guy has done, and I found it to be absolutely fascinating, as he took all of the words and terms that Rome used and the church has used during the Middle Ages, during the Dark Ages, all the Protestant church symbols and words and terms, and showed where they came from, the etymology of the words and the foundation of the concepts, showing them to be maritime admiralty concepts, the way the church was set up, how the Knights Templar set up the banking and words and terms and symbols and emblems. It's an incredible array of knowledge on the world of the occult in world religion. It's called Priesthood of the Elis. It's on my website. And beneath it is a second video I did called Dawn of a New Day. I don't know if you've seen it yourself, Dawn of a New Day, but
yes.
It's explaining in detail the kind of thing I'm talking about in relation to how the Roman system dominates the earth today. And of course, at the very first thing you will see on that What's New page is the hidden dimension of world affairs, and you can see it's about the Vatican. So I have a lot of material that you can get right now that's documented stuff, especially that Priesthood of the Elis, 3 books, typewritten manuscripts on the very subject we're talking about now.
And you've released all of your research files, correct?
Yes, I have. That was on one computer. I have 6 computers incredible amount of material on all of them. This was one of the research files I have, which has like 3.4 gigabytes, 161 folders, 5,080 items. That's just one folder, and I've got more coming. But this is over 5,000 documents and materials, research materials. So on the What's New on my website, jordanmaxwell.com, a lot of stuff dealing directly with what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, and support Jordan, ladies and gentlemen, because when you do this kind of thing, you don't get rich, you go broke, and you go broke very fast. And
no doubt about it.
He's dedicated his life to bring you all of this knowledge. So pick up a couple of DVDs. Not only are they a good watch, but you're supporting a very, very talented researcher. Jordan, you mentioned the Knights Templar again, and I want to go back to that because I'm trying to understand this. There was a split, like we were talking earlier. Friday the 13th, the Vatican ordered all of the Knights Templar dead. The Knights Templar were the first banking system. How did the two groups come back together?
Well, I think that's the way. Again, that's the way organized crime operates. They have blood feuds as to who's going to run the organization when the big man dies, like in the time of Al Capone, and so there's a lot of blood feuds on the street to see who's going to run the mob now that the boss is gone. But once everything is settled down, it's business as usual, just like the mafia said, and there's nothing personal in any of this. It's just business. And so ultimately it's just business. Sometimes you'll have to end up realizing that your opponent that used to be your friend, that used to work for you, is now himself very powerful. And so now it just requires that you work, do what you have to do and grit your teeth and deal with somebody who is now your opponent in the world of business. So the Vatican has always operated behind the scenes of the world politically and monetarily, but especially politically, because religion is a very big tool, as you well know. There's wars going on today in the Middle East based on religion, based on theology, and this is where the real trick is. Once you understand the basis for theology and religion, and where these religious movements have come from, and how they're being used by the secret societies promoting these different religious movements, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Those people, those 3 religions are called people of the book. The reason why is because all 3 of those religions rely on a book, unlike Hinduism and Buddhism and other philosophies of the East, more philosophical and spiritual in their orientation. But the 3 religions of the West, so to speak, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, rely on a book. So they're called the people of the book. And as far as I'm concerned, it's just what I've looked at for 50 years. I don't believe for a minute that even Muhammad existed. I don't think Muhammad ever existed. I think that was a story that was dreamt up by the Jesuits and perhaps even a more secret society behind the Jesuits before they were incorporated. I think the Vatican is ultimately responsible for what we call today Islam. I think it was a Roman development for and given to the Arabic peoples. And we know that the Catholic Church and Vatican has been heavily involved in the affairs of the Middle East and the Arabic nations behind the scenes with the Knights Templars, because that's what they were doing there with the Crusades. So I don't believe Jesus existed. But I'm not in any way saying that the New Testament is not important. It is a very important book. It's telling you some extraordinarily important things about life, but it's encoded. You have to understand how to read the symbols. And once you do begin to see the encoded story in the New Testament, it begins to make a lot of sense. All the stories begin to make sense, because there's so much in the New Testament story of Jesus that absolutely defies imagination. I mean, why does Judas go out and kiss Jesus? Why is one man going out to kiss another? And the Christians will tell you, well, that's why Judas went out to kiss Jesus, to identify him so he could be arrested. That's not what the Scripture says at all. It doesn't say that. It says Judas went out to betray Jesus, to kiss Jesus, to betray him, not to identify him. And that goes back to a very ancient story of betrayal by the scorpion, which is Scorpio. The constellation of Scorpio is the backbiter. The backbiter who gives Jesus, or God's Son, the kiss of death because he is going to die in winter. It's a very ancient metaphysical story based on astrotheology that's been rewoven into an encoded story we call the New Testament. But as long as you do not know that encoded story, and as long as you're accepting that story as actual history, then you're going to be part of what is referred to today as the world of Babylon the Great, confusion. It's all a bunch of babble. So the stuff all you need to do to confirm this is to go watch a Christian radio or television. Go watch TBN and watch the incredible babble, silliness, selling junk and toys and jumping on the stage and singing hymns and doing backflips and breaking bricks and all kinds of silly things to entertain the masses, while nothing of any intellectual value whatsoever is being given to anyone. So, as far as I'm concerned, Christian television is a mockery of the human race. And if there was a God, it's mocking the very Creator by entertaining people with silliness and stupidity.
Well, absolutely.
I, on the other hand, am very interested intellectually and spiritually in the deep understanding of Scriptures and what it's actually saying to us. There's a scripture that has Jesus saying, by their fruits you shall know them. Well, what is the fruitage of the Vatican if it is not wars, violence, revolutions, murder, people burning people at the stake, prisons, all of this whole monstrosity that we had in America under the Bush regime? The Bushes were very pro-Nazi with their the Gestapo, SS tactics, waterboarding, all of the incredible Nazi tactics, connections to the Nazi Party, and even we know that Prescott Bush himself was one of the financiers of Adolf Hitler. So the Bush family were very, very in-your-face Nazi, SS, Gestapo, and they ran this great republic like Adolf Hitler would. And then, of course, when we found that people finally figured out that the Bushes are nothing but a bunch of Nazis, then they went for Obama, who came directly out of Moscow. It's an incredible story of we're going from left to right, from one hand to the next, and having no idea in the world what we're doing. The whole world loved Obama, never realizing that the people who are behind Obama, like Zbigniew Brzezinski and all the other people who were the financiers and the manipulators behind the scenes to put Obama into power, were themselves Soviet communists, taught and trained under Soviet communism, Bolsheviki communism. It's just an incredible array of stupidity that this country has been wallowing in, from going from Nazism to communism to fascism. We keep trying to make these things work. They have never worked. Hitler collapsed. The Communist Party collapsed in Russia. But thank God America's here. We'll just keep pushing Nazism and fascism and communism and all the other totalitarian fascist systems, trying to make this crap work.
Well, it's a democratic dictatorship, for sure.
It would be interesting just to go back and watch and run this country like Americans. That would be a clever idea, just to run it like the original Americans, who founded the country. I'd like to see a country run by Americans instead of foreign people who represent the Vatican and who represent the mafia. I'd like to see this country run by Americans, just for the hell of it, just for a couple of years, to see what would happen. So, as far as I'm concerned, this entire superstructure of America is a very, very dark and evil, corrupt system based on Rome, based on the Vatican, and based on the worship of pagan gods It's all over and everywhere in your face. Look at the, like I said, by their fruits you shall know them.
All you have to do is look at the symbolism behind them. I mean, it's
oh my
just
God, it's
all
everywhere.
over the place. And we have a great question from the chat room. Somebody asked, on your recent trip, did you happen to see the many sculptures of the pine cones, which are basically the pineal glands everywhere?
That's right.
Yes, and can you elaborate a little bit on the courtyard aerial view, which appears to be a keyhole, and does this relate to the Temple of Solomon, which appears to represent the sexual union of man and woman?
That's right. It all is very much so. As a matter of fact, the whole courtyard, and it's on my website actually. I've got a lot of information on that. Yes, it is a keyhole because the Pope holds the two keys, the key to heavenly power and the key to earthly power. They're crossed, and all of that is very well known. And if you go on, as a matter of fact, if you go on my website to the links and scroll down on my links page to a section called Religion Theology. The first entry is a very big, I made it very large so you can't miss it. It's called Christianism.com. And go to Christianism.com on my links page under Religion and Theology. And it's only about 6,500 pages of documents on everything to do with religion, where the words came from, who founded what, who financed what these words mean, who were these secret societies. Over 6,600 pages of documents was put together by a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine in San Diego. He's a doctor, and he put this thing together, and it's a mind blower. He's traveled all over the world for many years researching the Vatican, religion, the Bible, where all of these things have come from. It's a mind-blowing experience, and it's for free. It's right there on the web if you just go and sit for the next couple of years and go through 6,600 pages plus about 35 or 40 links that he has on his website. So there's just an awful lot of material out there, but most people are too busy watching basketball to fool with any of it. Besides, it doesn't make much sense because it has nothing to do with soccer or or anything else that we're considered to be very important right now.
Absolutely. Our listeners, though, are tuned in with a lot of questions. Let me go to one more from them. What is the current situation of the Black Pope?
Oh yes, well they've just changed. They've changed chairs here just recently. The man who was the Black Pope. The Black Pope is simply the Jesuit general, the man who was in charge of the Jesuits, and God knows that's a story right there in itself. Who are the Jesuits? What are they, and what part do they play in the downfall of America? What part do they play in the uprisings and murder for hire in Central America, Mexico, the drug cartels, meddling drug cartels in Colombia? What part do the Jesuits play for the Vatican and for the Knights Templars in the world of white slavery, pornography, drug running, murder for hire, all of the most incredible, filthiest, and dirtiest stuff in the world? Jesuits are involved in. And the church is involved in. We know that the Catholic Church is involved in all kinds of pornographic stuff and drug running and murder for hire and overthrow of countries. There's a lot of stuff that people just don't know. And unless and until we look up and find out what this whole Roman institution that's dominated the globe for over 3,000 years, until we wake up and find out what America was supposed to be, and why the founding fathers had to do it over here and leave Europe to come here for freedom, and why is it that when America was founded, the Catholic Church was not allowed to operate in this country? That is a fact of history. The Catholic Church was outlawed when this country was first founded and was not allowed to operate in America. When, in fact of law, and point of fact, it is today running the whole planet. And so I'm just amazed at how much